In this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to do the moss stitch border, which is a beautiful border for any blanket. I am using Karen Simply Soft and a 5mm crochet hook, but you can of course use whichever yarn and hook suits you. You'll need a pair of scissors and a darning needle for sewing in your ends. I will leave all of the links in the description box below for you, so click that show more button or the drop down arrow if you're watching on a mobile device, and you'll get all of the information there. It will take you to the blog post with the written instructions as well as a pinnable image so that you can save this project for later. Please make sure that you like this video and also leave me a comment because I love reading your comments, and also subscribe and click the bell button to be notified of when my videos go live. Okay, so before we start, I just want to mention that I have my sample swatch here and that I have added the foundation border onto this blanket. If you haven't seen that video that I've done yet, please go and check it out. Again, I'll leave a link in the description box below, but it tells you how to add a foundation border or prepare any piece of work for your border. It just makes it look really nice and neat and tidy. I have used the same colour for this, which is perfect. I'm just going to bring another example over here of where I actually used a contrast colour so that you could see the stitches that I was doing. And you can just see that with the contrast colour, especially down the edges here, it just doesn't look as neat as what it would do if you use the same colour for as your blanket or the main colour. So just bear that in mind and go and watch that tutorial if you haven't seen it already. Now for this particular pattern, you are going to need an odd number of stitches across your edges. So when you are working this foundation border, just be mindful of that. So I have 19 stitches along the edge and 21 along the top and the bottom. Now I did actually have to just add an extra stitch. You can just see here I've just done 2 stitches in there to make it an odd number of stitches, and I think I also did it along the edge here somewhere to increase the stitches. So when you do this border, and if you do it in the same colour, it just makes it nearly invisible to see how you've prepared those stitches. So go ahead and prepare your work, and then let's get started with the moss stitch. Okay, so we're going to begin in this corner space, and in my corner I have worked a double crochet, a chain 2 and a double crochet. So I'm going to insert my hook into that chain 2 space and then bring that yarn through to start. And I'm going to chain up 1, which does not count as a stitch, and start off with a double crochet in that very first stitch. Now what we're going to do is work our pattern repeat, which is really simple. We're going to chain 1, we're going to miss this first stitch just here, and then we're going to double crochet into the next stitch. Remember, I'm working in UK terms. In the US this is known as a single crochet. So far we have the chain 1 in the corner, which does not count as a stitch, a double crochet, a chain 1, miss a stitch and a double crochet, and we're going to repeat that all the way across. So we're going to chain 1, miss a stitch and double crochet, chain 1, miss a stitch and double crochet. I'm just carrying my tail end here across just so that I can crochet a little bit of that in as we go along, but we're simply going to do this all the way across. Chain 1, miss 1, double crochet, chain 1, miss 1 and double crochet. You're going to repeat that all the way until you get to your next corner or your second to last stitch before the corner. So pause the video and then meet me back once you're ready. Okay, so I've just worked into my second to last stitch I'm going to chain 1, skip the last stitch, and then into the corner we're going to work a double crochet, a chain 2 and a double crochet, and that's what we're going to work into the corners each time. We're then going to work back along this edge. We're going to chain 1, skip a stitch and then double crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch, double crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch, double crochet, and this is what we're going to do all the way down this edge till you get to your second to last stitch. Chain 1, miss that last stitch and then work your corner. You're going to do that down the edge, work your corner, edge, work your corner, and then work down the last edge until you have 1 stitch remaining, and then meet me back and I'll show you how to finish off this round. Okay, so I've worked my way around. I've done a double crochet, chain 1, and I'm going to miss that stitch. I'm now going to do a double crochet into that first corner that we worked and go ahead and chain 2, 1 and 2. And then I'm going to slip stitch into that very first stitch that we created, and that finishes off that corner that from the very beginning. So now we're ready to move on to round 2. I'm going to stick with the same colour this time. You can play around with your colour changes because it does have slightly different effects for the moss stitch, but I'm going to stick with the same colour and then show you how to change colours on the next round. Okay, so for round 2 we are going to start off our stitches again. You can either chain 1 here and do a double crochet into this chain 2 space, or you can do what's called a standing double crochet, where you go into the stitch and then yarn over and pull through, so you have 2 loops on your hook, and then yarn over and pull through both loops. That just makes it look a little bit less bulky in the corner if you prefer that method, or you can chain 1 and double crochet, it's totally up to you, but we just want to make sure that stitch is in that chain 2 space just here. Now what we're going to do is chain 1, miss a stitch, and then we're looking for that chain 1 space from the previous round, so that is just here, and we're going to do a double crochet into there, chain 1, miss a stitch and look for that chain 1 space and do a double crochet, chain 1, miss a stitch, look for that chain 1 space and double crochet, and you're going to repeat that until you get to your last chain 1 space before the corner, and then meet me back once you're ready. Okay, so I've just done that double crochet in the last chain 1 space of this edge. I'm now going to chain 1, skip that last stitch, and now we're working into the corner space where, as I mentioned before, we're always going to do a double crochet, a chain 2 and a double crochet, and then we start that pattern repeat again. So it's chain 1, miss a stitch, and then double crochet into that chain 1 space, chain 1, miss a stitch, double crochet into the chain 1 space, chain 1, miss a stitch and double crochet. So you would work that all the way down until you get to your corner. In your corner space you're going to work double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, work your way along the edge, do your corner and then edge, and then meet me back when you get to your last chain 1 space of this last edge, and I'll show you how to finish off this round. Okay, so I've just done my last double crochet into that chain 1 space. I've done a chain 1 and now I'm working into that very first corner where I'm going to do a double crochet, chain 2 to create that corner space, and then I'm going to slip stitch into that standing double crochet from the first round. So what I'm going to do here is actually fasten off this colour. So I'm going to slip stitch and then fasten off. And then I'm going to attach my next colour into this corner space. So you can either pull through the yarn, chain 1 and double crochet, or if you're doing your standing double crochet, you might want to put a slip knot on your hook, insert the stitch, yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over, pull through both loops on the hook like so. So that's created that first double crochet into that corner, and then we want to go ahead and chain 1, miss that stitch, and then find that chain 1 space and do the double crochet, chain 1, miss a stitch, double crochet, chain 1, miss a stitch, and just continue with that pattern all the way round. So there's nothing else to the pattern other than this, as long as you know what you're working in your corners and you're skipping those stitches. You can just keep building and building your rows or rounds. What I'm going to do now is add a few more rounds to this border, just so you can see what it starts to look like, and then I will meet you back in just a moment. Okay, so I've now built a few more rounds of this border, and I've done it in a couple of different ways. I have done 2 rows of the colour here, 2 rows of the colour here, and then just done 1 row of each colour, and you can see the difference that it makes to your actual stitches and to the end result. So feel free to have a little bit of a play around with that to decide what kind of pattern you prefer. Obviously it's totally up to you, but I just think it's a really stunning stitch, and it really finishes off a blanket really nicely, and obviously you get these really nice sharp edges as well. So there is the moss stitch tutorial. If you like this video, make sure that you give me a thumbs up and leave me a comment in the comment section below. I would absolutely love to see your projects. If you've used this stitch, make sure you tag me at Bella Coco Crochet on Instagram. Also, don't forget to click the subscribe button and the bell button to be notified of when my videos go live. But thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you again next time. Bye.